Welcome to the Haunted Therapist podcast, everybody. I'm Brett Harp, your haunted therapist. And tonight, Stranger Things Season 5 finally premieres. And I'm so excited to dive into what's probably the last chapter of a story that has haunted, healed, and bonded millions of us for almost a decade. As I've been preparing for this episode, taking notes, reviewing scenes, sitting with the emotional undercurrent of the show, I realized something important. Before we enter this new season, we need to revisit one of the richest, deepest, most psychologically layered arcs this season has ever given us. Max Mayfield, her grief, her guilt, her trauma, her haunting, and her fight, not just against a monster, but against the parts of herself that feel like monsters. So today, we are weaving together 4 separate but connected layers. Max's traumatic arc, the psychology of the final girl, the way Stranger Things portrays shared collective hauntings. And one of my favorite metaphors we'll explore deeply today is the mind as a haunted house. All of that grounded in real trauma work, EMDR, dissociation, community care, and a touch of paranormal understanding. Because Stranger Things isn't just supernatural horror, it's psychological horror. It's the horror of memory, the horror of shame, the horror of believing you're the reason something terrible happened, and the terrifying belief that you don't deserve to come back from it. Max's story is the beating heart of all of that. So let's start where season 4 begins. Max is grieving Billy's death, but not in a clean, cathartic way. She's grieving in the messy, internalized, this is somehow my fault, even though I can't prove it way. She's grieving silently, privately, punishing herself before anyone else can. She becomes a ghost in her own world. She isolates, shuts down, pulls away from the friend group that once helped her to feel alive. And that's exactly how complicated grief works. It's not loud, it's not obvious, it's not cinematic. It's quiet, slow, and heavy. It eats you from the inside out. Now here's where I want to bring the final girl archetype, because Max is a final girl, but not in the way we normally see. She's not confident, not prepared, not armed with a baseball bat or a plan. She represents the freeze response from fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. She's freeze. She also represents dissociation, avoidance, the if I don't move, maybe the monster won't see me type of survival mode, where 11 embodies the fight response, pure psychic force and emotional bravery. Max embodies the collapse response, the one most people understand, the one that looks like giving up, but is actually the nervous system going into protective lockdown mode to keep you alive. When Max walks through the halls of Hawkins Middle School with her headphones on, that's a trauma response or a protective response. When she sits alone at lunch while others laugh together, that's a trauma response. When she says she's fine while clearly being anything but, that's a trauma response. And when she reads the letter to Billy at his grave, that letter that she has clearly rehearsed 100 times in her mind, that vulnerability is what finally opens the door for Vecna, which brings us to the next concept, the mind as a haunted house. If you've done trauma work or if you've heard me talk about this before, you know how I often describe the mind as a haunted house with rooms. Some rooms we visit every day, some rooms we've boarded up, some we've bricked over completely. Some have memories trapped behind them like wallpaper peeling off an abandoned attic. So when Max steps into Vecna's realm, what we're seeing is a metaphor for entering the locked, dusty, cobwebbed attic where she shoves all her guilt and shame and unresolved grief. And Vecna doesn't chase her through the woods. He doesn't stalk her at school. He drags her inward into those spaces she's been avoiding. Vecna is the attic monster. Vecna is the voice behind the locked door. Vecna is the memory you don't want to face, given shape, form, and sharp teeth. Now, this is where the brilliance of Stranger Things really shines, because while Max is being pulled into her haunted house, something else is happening. Her friends are fighting to keep her tethered to the world. And this is where the third concept, collective hauntings, comes in. Max isn't experiencing this alone. She's experiencing it with a group who believes her. And I cannot overstate how powerful that is. When someone is dissociating or overwhelmed or slipping into a trauma response, one of the most grounding things you can do is stay with them and witness, be a witness for them, speak to them, call them back, say their name. And that's exactly what the Hawkins kids do. They talk to her, they stabilize her, they notice the signs, and they take her seriously. Think about that. If Max had been alone, Vecna would have won. If Vax had been or you're imagining things, you're fine, you're overreacting, Vecna would have tightened his grip, but she wasn't alone. She had community. And their belief in her experience is what ultimately saves her. That's just not metaphor. That's psychology. It's also paranormal psychology. Because in real hauntings, in real unexplained phenomena, one of the most grounding, regulating, emotionally validating things that can happen is someone else confirms what you saw or felt. I heard that too. I saw that shadow. I felt the temperature drop. You're not crazy. That's exactly what Max's friends do. They validate the haunting. They confirm the threat. And that belief acts like co-regulation, nervous systems stabilizing each other. So let's go back to that scene. Max lifts into the air, her eyes glaze over, her body is not present, her mind is trapped in Vecna's haunted attic. She's frozen, she's gone. She's seconds from death. And what do her friends do? They put music in her ears. They give her Running Up That Hill. They give her an anchor, a grounding cue, a piece of sensory input strong enough to cut through dissociation. Because music is powerful. Music is rhythm. It's bilateral, left, right, like EMDR, left, right, if you've done it. And so is walking too, or rocking, or a heartbeat. Music brings us home to our bodies. And Max literally runs through memories, through trauma, through fear, through the red sky of Vecna's realm, toward the portal her friends have opened. And this is where I want to slow it down, because when she bursts through that portal and collapses onto the ground, sobbing in Lucas's arms, that's the moment the final girl chooses survival. She chooses life again, not because the monster vanished. Vecna is still there, but because she remembered she's not alone. She remembered she had a song. She remembered she had people. Now, let's zoom out to a concept we haven't woven in yet. How other final girls in this series represent other haunted rooms of the psyche. So take Nancy, the strategist, whatever. The thinker, the one who builds safety by controlling the details. Nancy's final girl energy is hyper-focus. She keeps watch. She asks the right questions. She doesn't miss cues. That's her trauma response. And then there's 11, the warrior. The one who turns trauma into power, the one who dissociates up and out through psychic force instead of shutting down. She's the fight response, the chosen girl who's always being asked to save everyone else while she's falling apart inside. And Joyce, the material girl, stuck in the 80s, right where I want to be. The maternal final girl. The hyper-vigilant mother wolf who refuses to lose another child. She represents the never again fight response, trauma that creates ferocious determination. When you put them all together, Max, Nancy, 11, Joyce, you get a map of the nervous system in survival mode. So we've got Max, freeze, 11, fight, Nancy, focus control, Joyce, hyper-vigilant, protection. And each of them shows us a different haunted room inside of the psyche. And now let's come back to Max, because after she escapes Vecna the first time, something shifts inside of her. She doesn't suddenly feel healed. She doesn't suddenly become brave. She doesn't transform into a warrior overnight, but she does start opening doors inside her haunted house that she had previously sealed shut. She journals, she talks more honestly, she begins confronting her fears instead of running from them. She stops pretending everything is fine. And that's trauma work. It's not perfection, it's not fearlessness, but it's the willingness to face the monster instead of avoiding the room that it hides in. It's the difference between knowing fear and striving for no fear. So no fear, KNOW, versus no fear. And Stranger Things gives us this unbelievably powerful symbolism. Max starts choosing exposure over avoidance. She chooses to bait Vecna. She chooses to walk into the dark room on purpose, not because she wants to, but because she wants to stop being haunted or hunted. Because anytime a survivor decides to face what hurt them, whether that's a memory, a belief, a shame, or a supernatural experience that won't leave them alone, that's the moment that healing begins. When Max lies on the bed in the Creel house, closing her eyes to draw Vecna out, that is exposure therapy. It's the same concept as telling your nervous system, I'm going to enter the memory because running from it isn't working anymore. Except, of course, in Hawkins, the memory fights back. Vecna doesn't want Max to escape. Trauma doesn't want to lose its grip. Shame doesn't want to be dismantled. Monsters don't want their victims waking up. And that's why Vecna becomes more aggressive, more violent, more determined to pull Max under. When he finally ensnares her again in the finale, when he lifts her up, breaking her bones, blinding her eyes, this is symbolic, not just horrific. It's what it feels like when trauma resurfaces stronger than before. When you think you're ready and suddenly you're not. When healing brings you into contact with things you weren't prepared to relive. When the mind's haunted house is not just creaking, it's collapsing. Now, here's the thing. Stranger Things uses horror to mirror internal experience. And because of that, the final confrontation with Vecna isn't just a final boss fight. It's a psychological showdown. Max fights him internally. 11 fights him psychically. And the group fights him communally. This is collective trauma work. Every character contributes their nervous system to the battle. Every character holds a different part of Max's psyche. Lucas holds her body, 11 holds her soul, and her friends hold her memories. And the community, Robin, Steve, Nancy, Dustin, they hold the belief that she can survive this. And that's the fourth major lens. Shared hauntings require shared healing. When Lucas cries out, Max, stay with me, that is co-regulation. That is the nervous system trying to pull another nervous system back to the present moment. That is love operating as grounding. And this is important because that moment shows us what happens when the haunted house collapses and the community refuses to let you disappear into it. They pull her back, literally. And here's the part people forget. Max survives twice. The first time through music and the second time through community. Which brings us to another layer I want to explore. Something Stranger Things doesn't name directly, but it absolutely portrays, which is division of the self. So in trauma, we talk about parts: the wounded child, the protector, the exile, and the manager. Max's parts are all visible in season 4. Her protector part avoids, her exile part holds the shame about Billy, her manager part keeps her isolated, and her inner child part is the one Vecna manipulates. And it's the tenderest, most vulnerable part of her. And her friends, they act as externalized parts of her psyche, too. It's parts work therapy model disguised as supernatural horror. And every one of them has their own haunted rooms. And let's talk about that, because Stranger Things is fundamentally a story about people who are haunted in different ways. So 11 is haunted by her origins, a past she doesn't fully understand, by a self she's terrified might still be inside of her. Will is haunted by the mind flayer, by trauma that possessed his body, by a fear that he will never truly be free. Hopper is haunted by grief, by the loss of his daughter, by the failures he believes define him, by the fear that he will always lose the people he loves. And Joyce is haunted by anxiety, by the constant fear that bad things will happen, by the belief that she must always stay vigilant to keep her loved ones safe. Nancy is haunted by guilt, by Barb, by decisions she made, and by the pressure to always be the one who figures things out. Jonathan is haunted by responsibility, by the need to protect his family while navigating his own uncertainty and pain. And Max, of course, is haunted by guilt, grief, and by the belief that Billy's death is somehow her fault. Every character represents a room in the haunted house of the show. Every character represents a way trauma echoes and mutates. And this is why Stranger Things resonates, not because of monsters, but because it externalizes the monsters we're already fighting internally. It also resonates because of the amazing 80s nostalgia present and the music. So let's return to Max. After the final battle with Vecna, she survives, but barely. Her body is broken. Her mind is shut down. Her consciousness is unreachable. And here's the part that hits me hardest as a therapist. So when 11 reaches out to find Max in the void, she's not reaching out to fix her. She's reaching out to witness her pain, to sit with her in the in-between, to not let her be alone in the dark. That is therapy. That is love. That is community. That is survival. And that is healing. It's not immediate. It's not perfect. It's not magical. It's messy, but real. And here's something beautiful and tragic at the same time. So Max's body is in a hospital bed, but her mind is still in the haunted house. 11 enters the house with her. She doesn't turn on the lights. She stands there with her. She holds the space. And that's all healing is. Standing in the haunted room with someone until they're ready to leave. So why does all of this matter as season 5 premieres tonight? Because we are all about to re-enter the collective haunted house of Stranger Things. We're going to see how grief, trauma, identity, love, and memory collide in the final chapter. We're going to see how shared hauntings resolve. We're going to see who faces their attic monsters and what happens when the house collapses for good. As you watch tonight, I want you to remember your own running up that hill. Your grounding cue, your anchor, your life-saving song, your sensory anchor out of the upside down. Because Max's survival wasn't luck. It wasn't random. She survived because she had a song, a community, a willingness to face the attic, and people who refuse to let her stay locked inside of it. Just like you, just like all of us. So as the portal opens tonight, as we head back into the shadows, as we watch these characters face their last round of monsters, remember, you have your own lifeline too, even if it's just inside of you. Your own Steve, your own internal Robin, your own Lucas calling your name, your own 11 reaching out in the dark, and your own song that plays when you need it most. And if you don't have one yet, you will. You'll find your lifeline, your grounding tool, your tether, your escape route from your own haunted attic. Because healing isn't about never being haunted. It's about knowing how to find your way back. Until the next portal opens, stay haunted, stay curious, and keep running towards that light.